In the spirit of starting simple and then adding complexity to a painting, a fantastic way to render is to simplify the object first into a planar analysis. The next pass is to take that faceted shape and then to smooth it out into the rendered form. In this video, I'll focus on the brush technique that I like to use for this sort of smooth blending. But as a quick reminder, if you look below the post, you'll find links for free brushes and worksheets, as well as in-depth premium series available in the Control Paint store. For this, I like to use a flat, hard brush. And because it's got some directionality to it, I'm going to need to keep this brush palette open to the Brush Tip Shape tab while I work. This will allow me to change the brush tip angle by manipulating this thumbnail here that you can see. Also, before I start, I'm going to turn down the flow of the brush tool to about 60%. This means that I'll be letting less pigment out of the brush at a time, which will make for some softer rendering. In order to smooth out this planar analysis, I'll be using on-screen mixing with the brush tool and the eyedropper. And you should also note that I'm making sure the brush tip angle is perpendicular to the form. This helps me make sure that the brush marks will work with the form and not fight against it. So the first step is to make a new layer, and then on that layer, I'll be painting with this sampled color from the left face. And I'll pull the paint across the threshold, and in doing so, make that transition. And now I'll select some from the center face and paint that back in the opposite direction. And I'll start one last time from the left face, sample there, and paint back over the threshold. And when I'm done with all this, I'll switch to the eraser tool and erase away what I don't need. You could also use a mask for this if you wanted. So you can see the technique is pretty straightforward. Now that you've seen the theory of this brush technique, let's give it a try on this apple. So I'll make a new layer and pick two facets that I want to blend between, and then line up the perpendicular brush tip. Now I'll sample from one and paint towards the other. And then I'll go back in the opposite direction, sampling from the middle and pulling it over across the threshold. I'll do one more quick example. This time, going up and down instead of side to side. So I'll make a new layer, sample from the bottom, pull it into the top, and then sample from the top and pull it down towards the bottom. So it's a back and forth push and pull like this, and eventually you'll smooth out all those transitions between those hard facets. And since this process is pretty straightforward, I'm not going to bore you with blending the entire apple. So go ahead and download the file that I provided at the bottom of the post and give it a try yourself. This is one of those techniques that just takes a lot of practice, so don't expect to nail it on your first try. Have fun painting! One of the major themes on Control Paint is to break down difficult challenges into manageable pieces. And when digital artists start out, it seems like surface identification is a common weakness. So in this video, I'm going to show you a painting study that I do that practices painting difficult surfaces. But as a quick reminder, if you look below the post, you'll find links for free brushes and worksheets, as well as in-depth premium series available in the Control Paint store. So when I say surface identification, what I mean is the way that light falls across different surfaces. For instance, if you're to take a look around your desk right now, it's likely that you've got some shiny objects and some surfaces that are more of a matte finish. Well, this has to do with the subtle surface texture. And when you're trying to paint realistic things, making sure you know which material is which will really help sell the image. I got the idea for this study when I looked at the way that 3D artists display and preview their materials. So what I'm going to set out to do is to take a 2D photo of a rock and to try and re-envision that same material wrapped around a three-dimensional sphere like this. So I won't just be copying from the original photo. Instead, I'll be sort of analyzing the shapes and really trying to learn something about it. And in that way, I'll hopefully remember it a little better next time when I want to put it in a real illustration. So what you're looking at here is the photo on the left side, and then on the right side, I've cut a circle out of this layer, and I'll be drawing below it. So you can see as I draw here, it won't leave that circle. So as I look at this, I will be sampling some colors just to get a baseline. But I'm looking for things like, how's the transition between light and dark? In this case, it's pretty smooth. It's a slow change from light to dark because this is a very matte finish. It's not very shiny. And I'm going to first think about the large scale value changes before I think anything about the low relief surface detailing. So at this point, I'll probably make a new layer. I'll get a smaller brush, in this case, the hard flat. I'm going to start to indicate those stripes of raised rock. So I've jumped ahead a bit here to the point where I'm ready to start defining the edge a little bit. Now, if you see the edge in the photo, it's got sort of a stacked quality, like it was slowly eaten away by different levels of water. So I'll show this in my edge. So once again, the major idea here is that I'm looking at it and I'm learning something because I'm not simply copying the photo. It forces me to analyze the forms that I'm seeing and to wrap them around a three-dimensional surface. And hopefully by doing this, you get a better understanding of what the material is and how it reacts to light. And then an added bonus of doing this sort of study is that you can save these things and always be doing different ones. And after a while, you'll end up with a pretty large library of these materials, and you can use them for your own reference. In the past, I've talked about painting with a soft, round brush, almost like an airbrush. And then since the paint is on its own layer, switching to the eraser tool, using a hard eraser, and carving out a sharp edge. And in this way, getting both a soft edge and a hard edge. And then as you continue, you'd make a new layer, lay down more paint, and erase, and continue this process. In today's video, I'm going to show you a slight variation on this theme and how it might apply to more technical edge control areas. But as a quick reminder, if you look below the post, you'll find links for free brushes and worksheets, as well as in-depth premium series available in the Control Paint store. Here you can see I've got a quick tracing of a skull. And the reason I didn't just draw this is because what I'm working on today is rendering. So I don't really want to waste time doing a careful line drawing if all I really want to practice is painting inside of it. So I've made this tracing, and I want to do some of the simple shadowing underneath. With my line work layer on top, you can see that's in red here. I'm going to be painting on all layers below the line work. So I'll make a new layer, select the brush tool, change to a hard round brush. So it looks just like this. It's got pressure sensitivity but hard edge. And using that brush, I'll begin on the hard edge of the shadow. And right now, that happens to mean the edge of the form. And using this hard brush, it gives me nice control of that edge. It's a lot easier to get that exact shape if you're working with a hard brush than it is if you're working with a soft brush. And you notice I'm not being very careful about the other edge, which is going to be the soft edge of my shadow. And I'll show you what we do with that in a minute. Okay, so I've put in my hard edge using the hard brush. Now I'll switch to the eraser tool, select a soft round eraser, and then I'll erase away the soft edge of the shadow. This is where the paint is going to transition from the dark area into the light area. And obviously I'd be a bit more careful if this were a finished piece, but I'm just giving you guys a quick example. So in this way, I've started with a hard edge and then erased away the soft edge. So I get the best of both worlds. Now let's say I wanted to darken in maybe the eye cavity. For that, I'd make a new layer, select this color, make it a little darker, and go back to the hard round brush. So I paint it in place. Worrying more about the hard edge and less about the cleanliness of the soft edge. Then I select my eraser, go to a soft eraser, and erase away the excess and make that transition. So you can see why working on independent layers is important. Now if I'm happy with the way those two layers work, I can flatten those together with layer, merge down. So now I have a single layer for my rendering information. But while I'm working on it, when I'm laying down the new paint, it's important to keep those separate. At this point, I'm going to finish out the skull, but as you can tell, I've sped up the footage quite a bit. This is one of those processes that does take a while. Like most things in art, you gotta have patience. But if you watch those first few examples, then you know how I'm doing every step along the way. It's just one process repeated over and over. So really, there's not much of a secret to it. Add some with the hard brush, take away some with the soft brush. Very simple. You'll find really that the challenge begins looking at your subject, looking for where's a hard edge and where's a soft edge. It's those hard and soft transitions that interplay across the form that really create a believable surface. And so knowing how to lay down a hard edge and a soft edge comfortably with your paintbrush allows you to focus more on looking at the subject and recording what you see. So I encourage you guys to give this a try. And to help you out with that, I've actually included this drawing of a skull with the reference next to it as a downloadable image at the bottom of the post. So good luck with this and have fun practicing. Thanks for watching, guys.